Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to RLCS Overtime, your one-stop shop for all things RLCS and Rocket League eSports. I'm your host, Wavepunk. Got a findable carpet, a Quinn Lobdell, and why do we do this show? Good. It's like every week we leave somebody out, bring somebody new in here. Lawler's here this week. How you doing, bud?
Good.
Good. Just good. Just fine and dandaroony.
Like the most meek. Good.
So you finally got off the train stop in New Jersey. I see. Finally made it back.
Oh yeah, it was a long trip.
Okay.
A few interruptions on the way. You know, totally not my own fault.
Did Gibbs wave at you as he went back to New Jersey? As he like when he was like, hi!
Actually, we got off at the same train stop and switched at the same time, so I gave him a little high.
Okay.
Just great.
Give him a stank face for leaving you there on the landing. Guys, crazy week of Rocket League action here as North America did pan out, and we ended with no teams left undefeated. Cloud9 and NRG and G2 Esports all finding losses. G2 and Cloud9 were the two that we were kind of sitting there looking at, we're going to have a matchup of the undefeated teams here, but G2 was defeated, had a loss by the time they got to that match, and then they gave a loss to Cloud9.
No teams undefeated, but one team only defeated. Allegiance still struggling to get their first win. That's got to be a bit defeating. I mean, 0-5 right now. They are starting to run out of games and places to earn points. They're struggling.
I just love the only defeated. I don't think I've ever heard that, but that's. Oh man, that's got to be so rough to hear. They're 0-5. Like they're still looking for that first win. They went to Game 5 in both of their series this weekend. They're going up against Ghost and against Renegades, and like Game 5, going up and one of them went to overtime. One of them nearly went to overtime in Game 5. So close for these guys.
I mean, that's the difficult part too, because they played Renegades. Those two are neck and neck in the standings. Tiebreaker goes to Renegades, so they're even more so at a disadvantage. So, rip Allegiance.
Yeah. There's a very, very good chance that they're going to be in the relegation tournament at the end there and have to. I should have learned beforehand if it was even possible for them to get out of the bottom two right now.
I think that they are stuck. It's not 100% sure, but I think they are going to be in the relegation series. And if I were them, at least don't worry too much about like eking out wins in league play. Just try and improve as fast as possible for that series, right?
Yeah, get ready for that. I mean, they've done it once before. They did it in the play-in this season. They could easily do it again, and we could see them next season. But who is hot? Obviously, Allegiance having some struggles right now. But the teams that are hot right now in league play, we can talk about a few of them. G2 and Cloud9 was kind of the match everybody had their eye on this week, and it did not disappoint. G2 coming out with the victory in the end.
I was actually really surprised about this, only because we said it on broadcast a billion times, but we never know which G2 we're going to see when they take step on the pitch. You never know. Is it going to be the one that just starts with all the crazy passing plays, or is it going to be the G2 that everyone's concerned if they, for some reason, let newbies still log onto their account? That's a little strong worded, but
yeah. Well, this G2 was probably one of the most direct G2, like the play style at least is the most direct I've ever seen them play. There wasn't really like a lot of kind of pussyfooting around. They're just putting that ball as fast as they can on target, and you saw it paid off dividends for them.
Yeah, for me, like I came into this week saying G2 is going to go 1-1 this week. They're probably going to lose to Cloud9, but they'll win their other match against FlyQuest. And it was the complete opposite, and it made no logical sense. But a lot of it did have to do with Rizzo. Rizzo had a huge series against this G2 squad.
Oh yeah,
and I don't think
it's G2 squad against Cloud9. He plays for G2.
Yeah. I don't think he'd been feeling good about his performances lately either.
Sometimes they have internal struggles, okay?
Yeah, I don't think he's been feeling good about his performance yet either. We'll just have a conversation while these two fools do whatever they're doing.
I was listening. Tell me.
Please don't forget about me.
I think that's a big part of it, though. I think Rizzo really stepping up to give the relief of his two teammates as well. Just like he's going to be there when he needs to. Overall, I think all of G2 wasn't too happy with their performance, and I don't think that's a surprise. And there was when that roster first got together, and I had the honor of casting them in one of their first matches at the RLCS, like on this stage. I was blown away by what they could pull off, and it seems like they really haven't been able to get back to that. The honeymoon phase that every team goes through. But just like, oh, we're great, right? Sure. And then they're like, we are great. And they're like, what happened? And then everything goes down.
It's the story of G2. Are they on or are they off? What sort of team are they going to show? That they struggle with consistency a lot, and they get swept by they lose in 4 games to FlyQuest earlier. It was Cloud9. They got swept by Ghost, or they swept to Ghost rather. I'm misreading my own notes. But they get the victory here over Cloud9, and it has to feel good to be able to get that victory against what is considered the hottest team in the league right now. So that puts them right up there. We've only seen them play 3 games, so they still have half of their league play to go, even though we're moving into week 4 now, because they started off with bye weeks in their 1-game week already. So still a lot of G2 action left to go.
A little more than half.
A little more than, no, they've played 3, and yeah, they have
So they have to play 4.
Yes, that's
a little more than half.
Sure, a little more than half. Fine. If you want to go semantics. That's why I was saying half.
Well, we just made eye contact and we're like, okay, we're doing that. But we thought we were both like, us.
You missed the conversation that we had finally together.
Okay, cool. It's fine. It's tough there. But moving over to talk about like who's not hot right now. 2 teams are coming to mind for me here, and Ghost had a rough week here. And it wasn't necessarily because they didn't play well. They had these like Lethamir's internet just decided to not exist, and it's an online tournament, so the poor guy couldn't play in the first match of the day, and they got swept by Cloud9 there. And then it took him miraculously coming and showing up at the end of Game 5 to win it in overtime. Lethamir did end up playing and getting the win here over Allegiance, but it did take Game 5 overtime to get it, and Lethamir showing up in a big fashion.
Yeah, he tried everything he could to get it back, but the issue was it wasn't just that his internet was out, it was all of Toronto. Like you could go to a friend's house or something to get help out that way, but he actually mentioned and tweeted afterwards that after he was able to play that last game and they get the victory and bring it through, that it immediately went back out afterwards. So like for some reason they're like, okay, you can play Game 5 and that's it. Then he's gone. So he got lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And everyone's like, do you all feel that like Lethamir basically saved the series here? Did he save their season? Because if they lost this one, they would have been at 1-2. And they would have been in a much more difficult situation. Was Lethamir the savior of Ghosts here?
I mean, it's really hard to say because then at that point you're essentially just erasing all the work that his 2 teammates did to get those 2
Classic
wins.
Gets credit. He kept him to Game 5. Like he put a lot of effort in to make sure they even got to that point.
And how do we feel about Blues? You know, we see him showing up. He didn't expect to play. The guy had to rush home from something else he was doing just to play. He was not expecting to have to be relied on there. And then Lethamir didn't show up, and so they had to call on their sub. Like, how do we feel about Blues in his debut at RLCS?
I mean, I think it was just an unfortunate situation for him, to be honest. Anyone would rather have more than 20 minutes notice that they have to play their first game of the RLCS. Something anyone's going to be happy about that. You always want to warm up a bit. At least just get your hands on the controller, play a couple of matches so that your brain's kind of in that rotation mode or understanding how to play the team. And a lot of teams don't play with their subs. You just don't have the time to play with them. So Blues probably hadn't played with these 2 guys in God knows how long. I don't know their practice schedule as much as I'd, love to know, I guess. I don't even know. Don't tell me your practice schedule, guys. I'm not your dad.
Sure.
I mean, one of the, a really good point that you brought up, one of the huge things about substitutes is that you just don't have any time at all. And your substitute typically is just somebody who isn't going to bleed a lot of goals for you. Sure. It doesn't have to be somebody who can go and score insane goals. But usually, since most teams don't even practice with their sub, they're just looking for someone who is going to go in, play the way they want to play, and just let the team kind of fill in the empty spots for whoever they want to be. You don't get your substitute and say, hey, do your best Kronovi impression or impersonation, right? It's just play how you can and don't give up goals. So on that note, I mean, Blues, they won the series. He did enough.
Yeah, I mean, their first series, they did look really cold. You could tell that as he got to play more and more, he did play better. But to counter on that, too, and talk about that more, for how little these guys play with subs, he was at a baseball game. He wasn't even at his house ready just in case a situation occurred. He was completely off doing a completely different activity and had to rush home to help these guys out last minute.
Rocket League better than baseball confirmed?
Confirmed. Well, playing in your professional career, debut on the stage for sure. Probably a little bit better than I guess watching a baseball game or whatever he was doing there.
There was baseball involved and he was at it.
It's hard to make any real definitive statements about Ghosts on this particular match, this particular day, because they were playing with a sub, because they weren't playing with their full roster. And you can look at it and be like, oh, Lethamir had to show up and they went to overtime in Game 5, and Allegiance was competing toe to toe with them even when they were at their full roster. But Lethamir had just gotten his internet back and is completely cold coming into that day, and stuff. So, how do you think that this sort of rough week that they barely kind of scrape by staying alive here is going to affect them moving forward?
I don't think it will in a major way. To be honest, it's one of those things you can easily just write off as a ridiculous circumstance that hopefully never happens again. Even if they lost by their own accord, it's easy to just mention oh, we only lost because we were changing people around, even if they were all playing at their prime. And I think Allegiance did a grand job. I really do like watching that team. I think the plays they pull off are as high caliber as any other team. Their biggest issue is, again, leaving those holes whenever they do come up for those plays and not perfectly communicating on rotations and stuff. But I don't think it should affect them going forward. I definitely think the loss would have affected them a lot more.
Yeah.
I think the win, they were just, oh, okay, we got past the bump. There was a mini earthquake happening during our game or something insane, but we did it. We're okay.
Now, one team I forgot to mention when we were talking about who was still hot in the league that I would hate if we left them out. FlyQuest had a fantastic week here. They were 0-2 coming into this week. They win both their matches. They win against G2 here, going 3-1 in that series. Talk to me about FlyQuest right now. Is this a team that is a contender for the top 3 right now?
It's hard to argue that they aren't. I mean, they're one of those teams that have gotten really significant wins that we just haven't seen enough of, in my opinion. Like, I haven't seen the real FlyQuest capability yet. I think there's still plenty of time for them to develop and really get going, but they have a bunch of veterans on their team. They're playing the best that they've ever played, in my opinion, which isn't saying much because we have seen some really down play from them. No offense to Sad Jr. You haven't been looking the greatest, but
no,
he's playing a lot better now.
Yeah, I mean, Sad Jr. kind of, him and Kronovi both like have almost the same storyline, I guess, through their Rocket League careers, where it's like have really insane starts to the competitive scene, and then both of them dropped huge. Their skill sets just were not impressive at all. I think season 2 kind of that whole area and it seemed like they both made a lot of efforts trying to improve themselves, becoming better team players. You really see that a lot with Sad Jr. I think as a whole, his consistency has improved so much that, I mean, it's just coming out and being shown in FlyQuest. I think on G2, Kronovi, I think, has improved, and he has made huge strides. I think the problem is that he's just not as consistent, that those improvements, we don't see them as often as we do with Sad Jr.
And Corrupted G's, just watch him shoot.
No,
he played out of his mind.
I think getting back to what Lars said, all these guys are playing the best they've played to date right now, and to be playing together, it seems like a really cohesive roster. I think that they have a very good chance. I think they will absolutely make it into the playoffs. I don't see them in the bottom 7th and 8th spots, so definitely see them in playoffs, and then they could easily make the run through. They could possibly take it from NRG, but they're gonna have to go through Cloud9 and G2. There's a lot of really good competition still here in North America. Speaking of North American competition and players playing their best, who's in the lead for the races for the accolades right now? Let's take a look at the standings and where these players are sitting currently. About halfway through league play, we can take a look at the Golden Striker to start it off here. No surprise here, Cloud9's Golden Boy Gimmick sitting up there at the top, followed closely by Corrupted G.
He barely dropped. He was, what, 1.2 by the end of last week, and now 1.1, so still keeping up.
Even with the loss, too.
Yeah, still keeping up.
They are one of 4 teams currently in all of the leagues that has played 5 games. They are nearly done with their league play here. They only have 2 more games to play, and he's still sitting up there at the top, averaging more than a goal a game.
And Corrupted G, as I said, monster striker, especially this last weekend. I'd like to see where he was before, but he was able to put in anything he put, any kind of challenge on. Whenever his car hit that ball, it was just a laser for a target.
Absolutely. And take a look at who is in the lead for assists right now. Believe it's the clutch playmaker. That's what they call it. Yes, Lethamir here from Ghost, going to be up at the top there. Only playing 1 game kind of helps out your average a little bit there. But Gimmick, again, can you believe he's in the lead? He's in the top 5 for strikers and the top 5 for assists.
I mean, a lot of that does have to do with him and the way that he plays his position. Being that 3rd man usually to rotate in, he's the one that cleans shots up. And sometimes if he doesn't make that initial shot, usually the ugliness that follows afterwards, the aftermath of it all, gets put in afterwards, and that's where he gets a lot of those assists. But still, for them to be in that position, Gimmick is going to be up there simply because of the position that he plays in that 3rd rotation.
Yeah, I think actually if we looked at all of Cloud9, we would probably see pretty high assist numbers just all around the board. I think it's just the nature of their play style. But I think Gimmick especially, I mean, he has had a standout performance by far. I don't want to take anything away from him.
Yeah,
especially with how many games they've played.
Yeah,
we've been talking about the informal, Rookie of the Year award, and I believe Gimmick, especially for North America, is right now just very much out in the front. Everybody's like, this is the guy for it. But as far as formal awards go, taking a look at over on the defensive side of things, who's in the lead as far as saves across North America. Insolence is actually at the top. They had a bye week this past week, so we didn't get to see Rogue play, but Seabass up there and Garrett G as well. Now the Seabass is more in line with what we've seen in the past, where teams that are down at the bottom that are struggling to get the wins will have a lot of defense, but to see Garrett G up there on this list as well, still very impressive.
I have to echo with that, to be honest. The fact that Insolences and Garrett G are in the top 3 for that, Kronovi falling right behind him, and to kind of speak on what Quinn was saying, Kronovi had a tendency in Season 2 and 3 to always want to be in charge of an attack because he knows he's so good at it. Because why not? He pioneered half the mechanics that we all use as people. he should be ahead of that. But just to see that he's the only one on his team that's in the top 5 in the league individuals for Savior means that he really has understood how to start becoming more of a full team player as opposed to just, I know I can get us the goals.
Absolutely. Now we can check in with our sister league, the relegation league, the Rocket League Rival Series, and see where their standings are at right now. No surprise, the teams that we're expecting to be at the top right now up there, Fibian still undefeated. Every week we check in with them. They have yet to get a loss. And Hollywood Hammers, you might say, I've never seen that name on this board before. Well, they were formerly set to destroy, then they became Radiance when they left that org, and now picked up by Hollywood Hammers. They are still undefeated in the Rival Series.
The thing I'm most excited for is we look at how NA's playing out. We might see a rematch between Fibian and Alliance.
Could be. And Out of Style, I believe Out of Style had a great week as well. So those are our top 3 for the Rival Series. The teams we're expecting to be at the top, currently at the top, looking to try and get in next season. So we'll keep you up to date with how that league is going. But moving forward and looking at next week and what matches are coming up, 6 matches on the docket once more here. We've got some big ones in store for you. G2 and NRG will be rounding out the day there. And those 2 teams, again, battles for that top spot, trying to be in the top 2 of league play, to be able to guarantee their spots, through in the playoffs here. Cannot wait to see NRG play G2.
I mean, for me, I want to watch match number 2, G2 and Rogue. We've got a bunch of teams that are all fighting for that spot of like 3, 4, wherever it may be. And in that kind of situation, you're going to see G2 having a chance to finally put themselves starting to head into, okay, we can almost guarantee our spot. No issues with tiebreakers. Like, they have a really big advantage in that situation. But which G2 are we going to see again? It's so difficult to predict their games because I have no idea which team I'm going to see out of them.
Yeah, the other thing we have happening here, Cloud9 has their bye week here, so they will sit nice and pretty at just their 4-1. Nothing's going to change there, but NRG right behind them at 3-1. They play 2 games, one against G2 and one against FlyQuest as well. 2 huge matches there, and if they win both of those, they could take the #1 spot there for the day.
And honestly, I think it's huge. We kind of forget, we don't talk about it as much. Just making it to playoffs means you're in Season 5. You're in Season 5 RLCS so long as you guys don't all hate each other, break up, and go your separate ways. So that's on the players, right? But that is, I think, massive. And even if you make it down to the bottom 2, then you still have a chance to win the promotion relegation. So none of this is just like, well, chuck them to the dogs because they're done for the fight, which is what we've seen previously. It's like, well, sorry, if you don't make top 6, then you're just done. And then if you don't make land, you're done again.
Absolutely.
So it's a lot bigger for these players to do.
So we'll get to see some big dogs fighting against each other next week over in North America. But before we move on to talking too much about North America, we got to talk about Europe as well. So when we come back, we're going to do the exact same thing just over in the European region. Tell you how everything's going over there. Stick around. It'll be fun. We'll be right back.